What's up, everyone? It's Sister Citizen, and there have been a lot of negative reviews out there about Starfield. I typically don't do reviews, but today I'm going to finally share my thoughts about Starfield, but not in the way you think. Let me explain. The 40-second rule is a game design principle that states that players should encounter a point of interest within 40 seconds of going in any direction. This rule is used to keep players engaged and prevent them from having to move in a straight line to get to their destination. Why am I mentioning the 40-second rule? Well, I would say my audience generally likes Starfield, so I sent out a community post to ask them what was their favorite thing to do in Starfield. And surprisingly, it was exploration. Huh? How could this be? Considering people who don't like Starfield say it's boring with nothing to explore, which is their number one complaint. I also dove further as I felt I was onto something because I also asked what other space games have they played and if this was their first Bethesda game. And what I found that was quite interesting was that most of my audience played other space games like I do. And not just, oh yeah, I've played that game before. I'm talking about people who are currently playing other space sims as well, or had invested a ton of hours into them before. And then switching over to Starfield because it scratches that itch for an all-around space game. Granted, there were some previous Bethesda fans and some who never played a Bethesda game before, but for the most part, most were space simmers, so to speak. And then it hit me where Bethesda went wrong with Starfield. Todd Howard categorized Starfield as Skyrim in space, which I always tilted my head at. For me, it's not similar at all, especially when you consider the 40-second rule. I have over 1,500 hours into Old Rim and over 2,000 hours into SE. Also 1,500 hours into Fallout 4. However, I only finished the story twice in Skyrim and only once in Fallout 4. So I'm not one to be hung up on the writing and the story. I make my own stories. Hell, I played No Man's Sky for years and still can't fully tell you what the lore is, but I have a couple thousand hours in it. In my view, where Bethesda went wrong with Starfield was marketing it as Skyrim in space. Fallout 4 and Skyrim pretty much follow this 40-second rule. Every 40 seconds, something happens in the game to engage the player, be it some NPC coming out from nowhere asking you to hold a stolen sword, a jester stuck on the side of the road, or a sus NPC noticing how much bling you have. But in space games like Elite Dangerous, Star Citizen, Star Trek Online, No Man's Sky, all the other space sims my audience plays, this 40-second rule is not applicable and in some cases annoying. For instance, a while back, No Man's Sky introduced enemy ships that would attack you while you were on a planet or waiting at an outdoor space station for that perfect S-class ship. Players absolutely hated this and complained to the point where Hello Games added the option to turn it off completely. People just wanted to chill in the game, sometimes for hours, while waiting for that perfect ship or cataloging a new resource. And nothing was more annoying than being interrupted by an enemy ship while you were trying to build an outpost or get that perfect photograph of you and the new creature you found that you want to turn into a pet. And there's the comparison to Mass Effect, one of the best games set in space of all time due to its fleshed out characters and amazing story. But ultimately, in the way of open world exploration without having a quest involved or shipbuilding, roleplay after the main story has been completed, I wouldn't categorize Mass Effect as a space sim, rather a good story that takes place in space. Bethesda calling Starfield Skyrim in space was a huge mistake in my opinion because the gameplay and type of player who's played previous Bethesda games are not one and the same. I'm extremely curious if those who hate Starfield like and regularly play these other types of space sims. Okay, I've been called a Bethesda fangirl for defending Starfield, and I would say I'm far from it. I had no idea who the art director was, or what his name is, or who needs to be fired. I've only ever heard these names according to all of the reviewers online. Some fangirl I am. I just love RP, space, and moddable games. As mentioned before, after thousands of hours playing Bethesda games and only completing the stories in them less than a handful of times, which includes Starfield, I'm NG plus 16 and I've only completed the story twice, I would say I'm a space game fangirl. And Starfield has checked all the boxes previous space games did not. And this is something I hear all the time from my viewers. For me, No Man's Sky came the closest, but I was unable to customize or build ships. I couldn't play as a human or even female because all of the armors were made to look unisex. Yes, you have a ship, but you couldn't walk around in it unless you were on your freighter and you had a crew, but you couldn't take them with you, romance them, or even talk to them for the most part. Plus, No Man's Sky is set in a stylized version of space, and I wanted more realism. Not to mention, many people think No Man's Sky is boring as well, but to many, it's considered the best space game of all time. Elite Dangerous was pretty complicated, at least for me, and you didn't have space legs at the time, so you never left your ship. But recently, they added this ability. However, it wasn't well received by its players. Star Citizen has no shipbuilding functionality, so the game makes you buy ships, and believe it or not, they have a $48,000 everything pack. Yes, that's 48,000 real life dollars if you want to buy every ship in the game. Also, getting it to run smoothly without a monster computer is a challenge, and it's been 12 years and still no release date. Starfield, on the other hand, has all of the things missing from these other space games, and if Bethesda had marketed Starfield as a space sim and not try to associate with Skyrim or Fallout 4, rather just as a space sim unlike any of their other titles and more like other space sims, Starfield would knock it out of the park. The closest to IRL space that you can experience with all the goodies to date. I mean, even different biomes on one planet is an amazing accomplishment that no one ever seems to mention. And the ability to mod the game to customize your space adventures is further icing on the cake. Starfield isn't like any game Bethesda has released before, but comparing Starfield to their other open world titles was a mistake by setting an expectation based on previous gameplay. In my opinion, if Bethesda starts to lean into Starfield as a space sim and not compare it to its previous titles, it will be appreciated by the right player base. For people still hating on Starfield, I doubt the 40-second rule will ever be implemented in the game. It's a space sim. If that's not your genre, or any of the games I mentioned aren't in your regular rotation of games, maybe Starfield isn't your genre of game, and maybe it's just time to move on. Starfield isn't Fallout, or Skyrim, or Oblivion, or Morrowind. Starfield is Starfield. It wasn't made for you. It was made for us. Thank you for watching this video. And I would love to hear some civil and constructive discussions in the comments below. Any comments containing name calling and personal attacks on someone's taste in games will not be tolerated on this channel. Enough is enough. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button and make sure you subscribe so you never miss a live stream. See you in the next ones, Captains. Sanctum Universum.
Nothing like the wind in your hair. Not a bad idea to stop and get your bearings.